Chosen one, no one can capture the source of power within you. The moment you find your own path, all the obstacles of the outside world are not enough to stop you. Pay no attention to the limits that are dictated to you, to the looks that belittle you, for your potential is far greater than they can imagine. Never let them extinguish your own light. No one can touch that spark of faith that burns deep in your heart. Your uniqueness is a mystery they cannot comprehend, and only you hold the lock to that mystery. You will see, once you embrace your truth, no one can take you away. Your journey is an epic about overcoming the limits of those who want to limit you, and your heroism is powerful enough to shake all their doubts. Use this power now by writing 77 in the comments. There are moments when it becomes undeniable, the way your energy commands attention, drawing people toward you as if your presence has an unspoken gravity. They tried to stifle that force, covering it up with their skepticism, their coldness, their reluctance to acknowledge something they couldn't understand. Their decision was to follow the path of familiarity, attaching themselves to something that appeared more accessible, though it ultimately drained them. That choice they made, turning away from you, has left them in a web of their own making, one that tightens with every passing day. The imbalance is glaring now. Where you provide a sense of clarity and encouragement, they foster confusion and doubt. Where you elevate others, they diminish those around them. Now, they watch, helpless, as you continue to grow, flourishing beyond their limited vision. The weight of their earlier rejection lingers, pressing heavily on the space between you. They reach out in regret, attempting to reconnect, but their actions betray their sincerity. They see now what they lost, what they turned away from when they failed to recognize the power right in front of them. What sets you apart is not some elusive, ungraspable force, but an energy that is steady, grounded, and undeniable. You step into every room with purpose, not to control, but to align. When faced with obstacles, and there will always be obstacles, you meet them with a calm strength, embracing the challenge without allowing it to dictate your path. The hardships you face don't dull your light. Instead, they sharpen it, transforming your resilience into something even more potent. Unlike the toxic forces others seem drawn to, your strength is not a product of undermining those around you. You've learned that real power doesn't thrive by pulling others down. It thrives when it lifts them up. True confidence doesn't need to compete with others. It shines in its own right, recognizing the brilliance in everyone. You celebrate the accomplishments of those around you because you know that one light doesn't diminish another. It only amplifies it. The energy they sought in another was born from fear, the kind that keeps people small, controlling, and competitive. Every word exchanged becomes a subtle battle, every accomplishment a point of comparison, and every vulnerability an opening for manipulation. The charm they were drawn to wasn't authenticity, it was a calculated display, a mask designed to maintain a sense of dominance. Their support, if it could even be called that, was conditional, built on a foundation of superiority. But your boundaries, clear, consistent, and unshakable, are not walls meant to imprison others. They are affirmations of your self-respect. You don't need to make a grand statement to show where you stand. Your actions are enough. The energy you radiate doesn't demand attention. It commands respect. It isn't dependent on others' validation because it is rooted in a deep sense of alignment with your own truth. This is the energy that heals, the one that uplifts rather than diminishes, one that frees rather than confines. And that is what makes it divine. If you feel the abundance of divine love in your heart, now is the time to share it. You can help spread God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube and contributing $20 or more. This divine gift will touch not only your life, but the souls of many through this platform. Each of you has a sacred place in God's grand design, and your generosity will be the fruit of our prayers. Act now. Share your blessings to glorify His kingdom, for you were created to do even greater things in God's loving hands. May God bless you. Why couldn't they see it? Why couldn't they recognize the brilliance before them? It's all too easy to be seduced by what's familiar, even when that familiarity is toxic. Many people, conditioned by life's struggles, find comfort in negativity. Criticism becomes a form of affection, and the harshness of life is mistaken for truth. We grow up believing that those who point out our flaws are the ones who care most about us, while those who encourage us are too naive, too idealistic. This skewed perception doesn't happen by accident, it is learned. Perhaps they were raised in environments where affection was a prize to be earned through performance. Maybe they experienced relationships that made them distrust kindness, always searching for hidden motives behind every compliment, every gesture of goodwill. The one they chose provided an illusion of stability, an overblown sense of certainty, wrapped in drama and cynicism. This false sense of security, rooted in manipulation, made them feel strong, but in truth, it was a fragile, brittle strength. The louder they spoke, the more assured they seemed, but it wasn't real power. True power doesn't need to make a scene. It doesn't demand constant affirmation. It manifests in the consistency of its actions, its steady presence in the face of adversity. The world they chose was a world of constant noise, of fire and fury. But your presence was calm. They couldn't see it then, but your quiet strength was the foundation of true resilience. They mistook your tranquility for weakness, your unwillingness to engage in drama for lack of passion. But your silence was never weakness. It was clarity. The moment of realization wasn't an event. It was a process, a series of small cracks in the illusion they had built up over time. At first, the one they chose appeared appealing, but gradually, their charm began to fade. What seemed like honesty turned out to be nothing more than constant dissatisfaction. What was once passionate intensity became exhausting, draining conflict. The arguments they once had, fueled by emotion and seeming connection, now felt like battle lines drawn in the sand. It wasn't a sudden revelation, but a slow accumulation of moments that made the truth impossible to ignore. As you stepped back, the absence of your influence gave them space to reflect. The conversations that once revolved around themselves now felt hollow. The constant take-and-take dynamics became obvious, and they began to see how the toxic relationship they had chosen had kept them stuck. The subtle jabs disguised as humor, the jealousy masked as concern, all of it became clearer in your absence. When life became difficult, they noticed who was truly there to support them, not with grand gestures, but with quiet, consistent action. Crisis has a way of stripping away pretense, and when the negative energy they clung to couldn't hold up under pressure, it exposed their fragility. Their supposed strength was nothing more than a facade, and in the contrast, your true power emerged, even from a distance. The conflict within them unfolds as an intricate dance between self-preservation and growth, between the pride that resists admitting wrong and the clarity that only truth can bring. In the beginning, defensiveness took center stage, unwilling to accept the misstep. They scrambled to find justification for their actions, holding on to reasons that could make their decision feel right. They told themselves you were too quiet, too idealistic, lacking the intensity they thought was necessary. Every interaction was twisted into evidence that they were justified in their choices, in their decision to turn away. But when that defense crumbled, denial stepped in. They minimized the impact of their behavior, convinced themselves you hadn't noticed their absence, that you weren't affected by the distance they had put between you. But no matter how much they tried to ignore the truth, it remained undeniable and persistent. While they struggled to maintain their stance, your growth continued. The contrast between their choices and your evolution grew clearer, making their mistake impossible to deny any longer. Soon, bargaining began. They constructed new narratives, trying to weave a reality where they could retain the comfort of their negative choice, while somehow benefiting from your presence as well. But as the weight of their decisions settled in, depression crept in, an awareness of the depth of their error. It wasn't just what they lost by rejecting you, but the realization of what that rejection revealed about their own limitations. Eventually, they surrendered. They faced the truth of their decision, acknowledging that they had turned away from something of value, something that could have helped them grow. This self-awareness required courage, the courage to confront the uncomfortable, to face the hidden wounds, and to own up to their choices without sinking into shame. They began to understand that acknowledging a mistake wasn't a weakness. It was the foundation of strength. Every choice ripples outward, touching more than the initial moment. The consequences of rejecting your presence reverberated beyond just your relationship. For you, their rejection created temporary pain, but it also cleared the space for new beginnings. Without their conflicting energy, you were able to invest in relationships that recognized your worth. With their absence, your relationship with yourself deepened, and your path forward became clearer. Their attempt to suppress your light only allowed it to shine brighter. Freed from the exhausting task of seeking validation, you redirected that energy toward creation, growth, and the service of others. For them, the repercussions extended far beyond their initial choice. Their entire worldview shifted as they tried to move forward, but the negative energy they clung to tainted every area of their life. Their professional judgment became clouded by the same distorted mindset that had influenced their personal relationships. Their other connections suffered as their increasing negativity pushed others away. Most significantly, they lost the chance to evolve alongside you, to witness your resilience firsthand, to draw inspiration from your courage, and to be softened by your compassion. Instead, they became distant observers in your story, relegated to watching your growth from the sidelines rather than participating in the journey. While they struggled through their awakening, your journey continued unhindered. It wasn't because your heart was untouched by their rejection, but because you refused to let their limitations define your future. Your rise wasn't fueled by the desire to prove them wrong or to make them regret their actions. You grew simply because growth is what light does when it is not held back. It naturally expands. You bloomed because that was always your intention, regardless of the circumstances or who was watching. Once purpose is realized, momentum builds, and your actions continue to align with that purpose. The qualities they once failed to recognize became the cornerstone of your ongoing evolution. What they misinterpreted as aloofness became the boundary that allowed your generosity to flow without draining you. Your sensitivity became a guiding force, not just for yourself, but for others, as you walked the path of purpose. The essence of your journey was never about perfection or smooth sailing. It was about growing through the turbulence, integrating your struggles with your strength. Every challenge presented itself as an opportunity to reflect your unwavering ability to stand firm, not through force, but through your quiet presence and determination. New relationships blossomed around you, but not from the superficial or the fleeting. The people who connected with you were drawn to the depth you carried, finding themselves aligned with your true energy, not some contrived image. And with each new venture, doors opened, ones that not only mirrored your values, but pushed you to go beyond your own comfortable limits, evolving with every step. Your internal light, the one they were blind to before, was never dimmed in their absence. It simply flourished, unburdened by the need to convince anyone of its worth. Dear brothers and sisters, may God's peace be upon you today. I am here to remind you of a profound truth. Our existence is grounded in God's divine plan, unshaken by the temporal concerns of the world. As the Bible says, whatever is done in faith will return to God in abundant blessing. Luke 6:38. Like that great oak tree, our roots are deeply rooted in God's universal truth. Every step we take, every stand we take, is secured by His strength. And now, you are being offered the opportunity to be part of that blessing. When you use the Super Thank You button and donate $100, this movement will return to you 100-fold in abundance. Genuine transformation comes not from external applause, but from an inner alignment that remains constant despite the world's judgments. The ones who once discarded you now find themselves tangled in the reality of their choices, understanding the weight of their actions only after they've peeled away the layers of their denial. When they finally return, it's not with the assumption that everything will simply revert. There is no entitlement in their approach, only the raw understanding of what their absence has cost them. The attempt at reconnection becomes almost awkward, carried by the weight of their misgivings, with a fragile balance of hope and regret. Their words often betray their true intentions, hinting at growth, but still fumbling with the implications of what they've realized too late. In the space between your light and their regret, there's no quick fix. Healing doesn't work on a timeline, and the energy they projected onto you, the longing for approval, can no longer be the anchor for your future. True change reveals itself in actions, not words. They may say things like, "I've realized some things," or "I've been thinking about you," but their words still carry the undercurrent of their own discomfort. The true measure of their growth is not the surface-level apologies, but the depth of their self-awareness. Have they truly understood the impact of their decisions, or is this just an attempt to assuage their guilt? The authenticity of their return is mirrored in how they have transformed or not during the time apart. Imagine a solitary lighthouse perched on a distant shore, shining steadily through fog and storms. It doesn't chase passing ships, nor does it beg for attention. It simply stands there, steadfast and bright, guiding those who seek its light. In the same way, an individual who has faced their deepest shadows, truly journeyed through that long, dark corridor of the soul, returns to the world with a new kind of presence. No longer driven by desperation, they come back with humility, aware of the trials they've endured and the growth that emerged from every painful step. They are not here to manipulate or twist arms for quick forgiveness. They stand as a testimony to the power of grace and personal accountability, carrying neither hidden agendas nor whispered demands. Their entire posture is an open invitation to step forward into something greater, something anchored in the knowledge that all hearts have the capacity to heal and rise. This kind of return isn't about slipping back into an old routine or begging for a second chance. It's a shift in perspective that acknowledges the sacredness of genuine transformation. No matter how much they once tried to fill the void with outward validation, they have learned that true acceptance can only bloom when the soul has done its own inner work. They come with a spirit of peace rather than performance, and they no longer seek to occupy the same space they once did. Instead, they propose a new way of relating, one that aligns with a higher calling. There was a time, perhaps, when they might have wanted you to coddle them or soothe their guilt. But the individual who has wrestled with their own shadows emerges with a different kind of humility. Their presence no longer clings to you for reassurance. It becomes a gentle request to move forward in tandem with deeper truths. No matter how many tears were shed or nights felt endless, they stand in front of you now with a quiet certainty, like a pilgrim who has returned from a distant land bearing gifts of insight rather than pleas for sympathy. When this person appears, the question isn't whether to let them waltz back into your life as if nothing ever happened. The real question is whether there is a shared willingness to meet on higher ground, in a realm where both of you can flourish. The point is not to roll out the red carpet for them or to deny your own journey in favor of theirs. It's about discerning whether their transformation is sincere, whether they've laid aside the habits that once caused harm, and whether you both can co-create a new space unburdened by old patterns. Boundaries, in this context, are not designed to isolate. They are like the fences that protect a cherished garden, ensuring that what grows inside is nurtured, safe from the pests of resentment and the weeds of past misunderstandings. A boundary is an affirmation of worth, both yours and theirs. It declares that interactions will happen on healthy terms, ensuring mutual respect. A boundary says, we can meet here in this shared understanding without compromising the truths we've fought so hard to learn. Now, it's equally important to remember that not every return is genuine. Some folks might knock on the door of reconciliation because they feel lonely or uneasy about the consequences of their choices. But a soul that has faced its own dark corridors no longer relies on shortcuts. It won't try to sugarcoat past harm or brush aside your very real need for assurance. You can usually tell if they're still fishing for your validation rather than truly respecting your growth. Pay attention to how they treat your boundaries, how they handle the word no, and whether they attempt to leverage shared memories as a shortcut to bypass deeper issues. If you decide to open the door, it doesn't mean the slate is wiped clean or that the journey begins exactly where it left off. It means there's a mutual understanding that the foundation must be rebuilt. Trust is not a commodity to be handed out on a whim. It's an ongoing exchange of sincerity. By allowing them the chance to show who they've become, you also give yourself the opportunity to see if their growth aligns with your own. If it does, the bond that emerges can be stronger than before, rooted in truth and mutual respect rather than old illusions. For many who follow a spiritual path, it's tempting to interpret every return as a sign of destiny, as though it must mean the relationship is now guaranteed a happy ending. But real faith is not naive, it's discerning. It recognizes that while love is abundant, it's also precious, and it must be nurtured in fertile ground. When you hold your boundaries as an act of self-respect, you're also inviting the other person to do the same. Together, you can create a sacred space where both parties grow, not through fear or coercion, but through willingness and genuine devotion to what's right. This process is deeply tied to a higher calling. There's a belief that when two souls are meant to align, they'll find each other again in a way that transcends past missteps. That doesn't mean the journey will be easy. It means it will be authentic. If someone has truly confronted their own darkness, they aren't looking for a shortcut to acceptance. They understand that spiritual alignment is a continuous effort, a daily choice to act with integrity. They see the bigger picture. Real unity can only exist where honesty prevails. It may be helpful to think of it like a field in late spring. The soil has been tilled, the seeds planted, and now the rains have come. Growth happens at a pace determined by nature, not by impatience. The one who returns humbly has watered the seeds of self-awareness, and in the right conditions, those seeds can flourish into strong, healthy plants. But if the soil is still tainted with old toxins, no amount of sunshine can force the blossoms to appear. Both the environment and the seed must be prepared for new life to emerge. The conversation then shifts from, "Will I let them back in?" to, "Can we cultivate a fresh landscape together?" Maybe you've expanded your own horizons, discovered new aspects of yourself, and realized that you're no longer the person you were when they left. Your growth might mean that even if they've changed, the new versions of both of you may not align in the way you once did. And that's okay, because the point of personal evolution is not to cling to old relationships out of nostalgia, but to see if those relationships can evolve alongside you. In some instances, the most compassionate outcome might be to bless them on their way. There's a grace in recognizing that two paths don't always merge, even if both travelers have learned important lessons. At the same time, there can be profound beauty when two individuals, each having faced their own struggles, come together to share their revelations and build something stronger than before. It's an ongoing dance of awareness, vulnerability, and mutual respect, guided by the light of a higher purpose. Now is the time to share God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube. You can contribute to His plan and be a part of this divine mission with a donation of $100 or more. Every gift reflects God's generosity, and I believe it will return to you exponentially, far beyond your expectations. Remember, His protection and blessing is on your every step and every donation. You become part of His divine plan. You are a strong, radiant being, unshakable as His mighty rock. Witness God's miracles, feel the fruits of your generosity in your soul, and illuminate the world with confidence and courage. Be blessed and let the light of the Lord guide your path. Through all of this, remember that boundaries are not barriers to love. They're safeguards for authenticity. You've come too far to compromise the wholeness you've fought to achieve. If they have truly navigated their own depths, they'll understand that your yes means something now, because it isn't given lightly. They'll appreciate that your no isn't a weapon, it's a statement of integrity. And when two souls meet in that space of clarity, the potential for genuine connection is immeasurable. Ultimately, this dynamic stands as a testament to the deeper mysteries of life. The divine often works in ways that challenge our assumptions, inviting us to see beyond surface appearances. When someone who has truly wrestled with their own darkness returns, the meeting point is no longer about blame or justification. It's about stepping into a shared space where each person's integrity can shine. It's about recognizing that every scar tells a story, and that these stories can either serve as stepping stones or stumbling blocks, depending on how we carry them. This understanding is what defines a soul on a divine path. True compassion is not always soft. It sometimes requires sharp clarity, even if uncomfortable. Forgiveness isn't an erasure of consequences. It is the space to choose differently, to start fresh without repeating the same mistakes. And in the wake of regret, there lies potential for profound change, if only we are willing to face the truth without flinching. For them, their recognition of their mistake isn't just a wound. It's the very thing that can lead them to a deeper transformation, a more profound understanding of themselves